The Barracuda is considered a fastback in design, and the 66 was the last year they used the large glass window, which was the largest glass window ever put in a domestic vehicle. We started out in 64 as a fastback Valiant, stayed with the Valiant, had push-button automatic, and basically was a Valiant. In 65, it became a Barracuda, but still used Valiant badging. In 66, it got its own badge, which was the Barracuda Fish, and that emblem was under the back window and on the grille. It replaced the big V that stood for Valiant at the time. And then in 67, they went to a coupe, convertible, fastback option. The big glass was gone, and it kind of became its own car and lost the stigma of being just a Valiant. When I first got interested in these cars, it was back in 1965. I was just out of high school, and the girl I was dating, her brother just bought a 65. He got drafted in the military, so he asked me to take care of his car while he was in basic. I drove it for the 6 weeks and loved it, and when time came, a year later, I got my first, and it was a 66 Barracuda, and this is actually my third one that I have now. When time came to get this one, it was about 10 years ago. Searched everywhere, every news source, everything. I did find it in Hemmings, actually. When we first saw this car, it ran great, the body was solid, but the guy, his interest was the quarter mile. He had a very high performance engine in it. He built it to go straight, go fast, and that was all well and good. And it got us back to Florida, barely, but we wanted a cruiser. So decoding the fender tag that gives you all the options and color schemes and everything, we restored it back to what it would have been coming from the factory. The original engine in this car was a 273, solid lifters and cam, and put out about 235 horsepower. That had been replaced with a built 360, which is what was used to turn the quarter mile with and what we drove it back with. I now have a 318 in there, as the 273s are very hard to come by. It's mildly built, probably close to 300 horsepower. It is an automatic. It does have factory air conditioning, a very unusual option given with its Formula S. The Formula S gave you a little heavier duty suspension. It gave you a different exhaust, different gauges. You got a tachometer instead of a vacuum gauge. You got a 150 mile an hour speedometer instead of 120. A few little things like that gave it the Formula S. Of course, you also got the high performance motor, which took it from 180 horsepower up to 235. That was basically the difference. Everything else were options that you could add, such as disc brakes is an option for any model, the stripe, and a few things like that. This particular car, no, I've never raced it. A few little stoplight things, but I don't go very far because you don't know how far you can get without getting caught. Sometimes it's just enough to show these young kids and their little rice burners that there's more here than an old car sitting next to them at a traffic light. You get the point across and you back off and let them go. I appreciate my wife for letting me buy the car and do all this work.